Hi class, it's Miss Miller. How are you? So we are starting finally a brand new story. So this week we're going to be reading Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, and this book is actually in your textbooks that you should have at home, and we'll have a copy in the classroom. We will need you to read pages 222 to 233 for homework, and that's actually also on the classroom website. It tells you the specific pages to read this for tonight. We're not going to look at the text from a feminist perspective, although we could. We're not going to look at Flowers for Algernon from a Marxist perspective. We're going to put on a whole new lens. We're going to look at it from a psychoanalytical theory. Now, this one is very interesting. There are two approaches that you can use when you're looking at a psychoanalysis. One is you could focus completely on the story itself, the text, and that is the way you're going to help to understand the character. Or you could focus on, hey, let me understand a little bit about this author, and that will help me understand the meaning of the text. Have you ever had a oops moment where you say something, you didn't mean to say it, you didn't even realize you were thinking it, it was your subconscious that actually talks for you? That's what's called the Freudian Slip. And that's the same approach we're going to take when looking at a psychoanalysis of a text, in this case, the Flowers for Algernon. And the character is Charlie. We're going to find out his desires, his inner desires, and even the ones that are undiscovered. Here is a perfect example of Brain versus Brian. Also included in this psychoanalysis is this idea of an Oedipal complex, which suggests that a child or a son may have a very strong attachment to his mother, hence the idea of mama's boy. In this case, the father and the son have a rivalry with each other for the mother's attention. Vice versa, this also happens in the relationship between the daughter and her strong attachment to her father, and also the idea daddy's girl, where the mother and the daughter sort of fight for this the father's attention. And so this idea of the Oedipal complex, all of this happens at a subconscious level, which means the characters or the individuals or people do not necessarily know that it's happening. Keep in mind, this doesn't mean that it's true. It's just part of the psychoanalysis. This is the approach that you would take when looking at this piece of literature. And although this doesn't necessarily happen in Flowers for Algernon, we do see our character Charlie, who develops a strong attachment to this young lady by the name of Miss Kenyon, which you will see in the text. Part of the psychoanalysis approach to literature, or in this case, the Flowers for Algernon, suggests that there is a strong emphasis on the dream state of a character. In this case, you guys are going to be following Charlie as he records his thoughts and his dreams through this process. Apparently, the dreams reveal things that we feel on a very subconscious level. And so oftentimes we don't even know that we are thinking this until it shows up in our dreams. And so we get to look at this text from a different lens. The reason this is so important is because we have more freedom in our dreams. There are no social rules. We can do whatever it is that we want. And so a lot of times, things that we really believe go unchecked. The id, the superego, and the ego. The id is essentially an individual's basic desire. In this case, Charlie really wants to be smart. And we may see the id in him sort of play out in the very early stages of the text prior to his surgery. This is the behavior that an individual sort of possesses before they learn any type of social skills. And so when they are in this fashion, they operate in the id. This reminds me of my little son because he's always crying, or at least he cries in public. Doesn't even care that everybody's watching, or he wets his diapers in public. He might use the bathroom inappropriately, or this need for instant, immediate gratification. I have to have it now. So that's the it. The opposite of the id is the superego. The superego is where we start to see behavior that is more socially imposed. The individual now begins to develop a filter where they can determine what is right and what is wrong. You start to see a sense of guilt where they start to question themselves. And where the id may be a place that is very innate, it happens naturally, the superego happens as a result of direct parental instruction or just living in society. You learn the rules and you know what is appropriate behavior and what is not. The last part of the subconscious is the ego. And the ego is really just a balance between the id and the superego. So essentially what happens is the ego takes a look at the id and satisfies the sentiments of the id. And then it also takes a look at the superego, recognizes that there are some socially acceptable behavior and satisfies that. As a result, we take both sides and then the outcome would be the ego.